And congratulations to your appointment. You look good there. So,
Hey, give him an extra minute.
yeah, no. I want to just express my appreciation to all members of the House and all parties for taking this time and agreeing to having this emergency debate. I was struck this afternoon when we heard different members speaking about the crises and the flood in British Columbia, that we gave each other standing ovations. And so I think that we all of us here really do care for the people of British Columbia and for this province. So British Columbia is in a really tough spot right now. It is an emergency. I think of communities like Princeton, Merritt, Abbotsford, Chilliwack, that are submerged or partially submerged, and smaller communities like Lytton, which have been stranded. Many thousands of people have been evacuated. I think of my brother David, who lives in Yarrow, and people's livelihoods have been lost. The main transportation links were or are cut off. Most of us have seen the pictures of devastation on the media or in pictures of the Coquihalla Highway, for example, and other rail and road arteries. I don't know if you've traveled, members have traveled, or those who are watching have traveled the Coquihalla, but it is a marvel of engineering. And to see the overpasses collapse, and in other places and other roads, how the rivers have just changed and just wiped out the roads, it is quite stunning. My wife asked me this morning, she's hoping to see our granddaughter Harper, in Kelowna around Christmas time, as well as the parents too, who we love. But and I told her, I don't know if we'll be able to see them. Depends on the roads. I mean, these roads could be months. It will be months, many months before they're restored. Gas is being rationed in my riding of Pitt Meadows and Maple Ridge, and throughout much of British Columbia. Right now, I think of the entire city of Merritt that was forced to evacuate. I think of the towns and villages of First Nations, many of whom are reeling still from the forest fire damage this summer. Forced out at a moment's notice and living in emergency shelters once again. I think of the many people who lost their homes, their businesses, their livelihoods. I think of Mirsad and Anita Hadzik. Tragically, they lost their lives as well as two others in a mudslide on the Duffy Lake Road. And tragically, their 2-year-old daughter was left behind without parents. But even in these most tragic and sad situations, some rays are shining through. The people of British Columbia have rallied for this now orphaned child, an example of the old adage, it takes a community to raise a child. And money has poured from everywhere, over $131,000 so far on GoFundMe. I think it's important to acknowledge some of the more positive stories from the past 10 days. We saw people reaching out to strangers with vulnerable health, offering to run errands for them so they didn't have to put themselves at risk. There were stories that brought out the best in humanity, stories of love, generosity, and hope, from a place aptly called Hope, a small town whose businesses and people stepped up in ways that we haven't seen since Gander in the 9/11. One of my staff, Jay Denny, told me of his friends, Maya Warren and Chris Lang. They were on their way to from Kelowna to Vancouver and became trapped in Hope, along with many others when the roads leading out were closed or destroyed. They stayed positive through days, living in a car. Actually, the member for Langley Aldergrove, behind me, I believe. Yes, there he is. Okay. His own daughter, his son and daughter-in-law, and 5 children, they lived in their vehicle in an underpass for several days until they were able to escape. Maya and Chris talked about the amazing volunteers at the high school in Hope, and who provided blankets when they mentioned how cold it was. They shared stories on social media how Panago Pizza had a generator and the staff fed the people for free until they ran out of supplies. They were connected with Barb, who took them into a safe passage until a safe passage to Vancouver became available. Many others in Hope welcomed complete strangers. It's a testament to the fact that despite our differences, when things get tough in Canada, our strong community fabric comes through to help one another. I want to say kudos to the people of Hope and to the people everywhere who have lent a hand or donated to help out. This fabric includes our first responders, Canadian military, highway and utility crews, search and rescue units, and emergency services volunteers. Thanks to all of them, and to the people of British Columbia for their resiliency, and for all their generous offers of assistance, actually from all across Canada. And now to the challenges, current and future. One challenge is the clarity and timeliness of information. Those same people in Hope, with all their positive stories, also raised valid complaints about accessing information. The information they got was from word of mouth. They wonder, as I do, why they received no information via emergency alerts on their cell phones. Seems pretty simple. A simple message with the details of which radio station or website to get information would have gone a long way to help to locate emergency supports. If we can inform people province-wide about a missing person or a potential tsunami, then certainly we can inform them how they can get help in a natural disaster. This needs to be discussed further so it doesn't happen again. We also have, as others have mentioned, British Columbians who've been issued severe fines passing through Washington State without getting a COVID PCR test. These aren't people on holidays, Speaker. They are people traveling essentially to get goods to survive, doing what the minister said that they could. The minister said that the matter is all clarified, but what about those fines? The minister said the Public Health Agency, that's their responsibility. That's not good enough, Mr. Speaker. These people have had enough to worry about. They shouldn't be devastated financially. The minister needs to, with his statutory powers, do everything he can with respect to these fines to see them overturned. Mr. Speaker, the ongoing challenges to infrastructure, transportation, supply chain, food supply, natural resources, human displacement, and employment will be significant, and they all could have a net negative economic impacts for months, if not years, to come. Infrastructure concerns me greatly across BC, but particularly in my riding. We're relatively fortunate in Pitt Meadows and Maple Ridge, which is only half an hour away from Abbotsford. The Pitt and Alouette River watersheds were not as hard hit, but we didn't go totally unscathed. There was some localized flooding, but it could have been much, much worse. The dike system along the Pitt River has held, but there has been calls for years to upgrade this, but no money has been committed. Mr. Speaker, we need to do something about this because we could have a much more serious situation in the next freshet. The government has had 6 years to make significant improvements, and they haven't, putting the people in Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge, and KT First Nations at severe risk. We need to take action, which is to deal with the issue right now. There is time to discuss climate change and mitigation. This is important. But right now, we need to get the people out of the burning fire to provide safety and to move forward. That's immediate concern. And then lastly, I will say that it's important to keep the focus on keeping BC safe, people informed, and building back BC as quick as possible. And we need to remember the commitments that are being made here when this crisis is no longer front page news. Thank you.